Shadows of fear, secrets of the abandoned hotel. The moon hung low in the sky, a pale orb casting an eerie glow over the crumbling facade of the old Blackwood Hotel. Once a lavish retreat for the elite, it now stood as a decaying monument to forgotten dreams and whispered horrors. Its windows, like hollow eyes, stared vacantly into the night, daring anyone to approach. The locals spoke of it in hushed tones, warning thrill-seekers and curious souls alike to steer clear of its cursed grounds. But for a group of 5 friends, Maya, Jake, Lila, Tom, and Sarah, the allure of the unknown was too potent to resist. "Are you guys really going to chicken out?" Maya challenged, her voice echoing against the cold stone walls as they stood at the entrance. The air was thick with anticipation and a hint of dread. They had heard the stories, strange noises in the dead of night, flickering lights when no one was there, and shadows that moved against the grain of reality. But they were young, invincible, or so they thought. "Come on," Jake said with a bravado that masked his own unease. "It's just an old hotel. What's the worst that could happen?" He pushed open the heavy wooden door with a creak that sounded like a warning bell tolling in the distance. Inside, dust motes danced in the beams of their flashlights as they stepped into what had once been an opulent lobby. The remnants of grandeur lingered in faded wallpaper and cracked chandeliers that hung precariously overhead. A chill swept through them as they crossed the threshold. It felt as if they were stepping into another world, a world where time had forgotten its passage. "Let's split up," Lila suggested with a mischievous grin that belied her nervousness. "We'll cover more ground that way." The others exchanged glances but nodded reluctantly. Curiosity outweighed caution. As they ventured deeper into the hotel's bowels, each room told its own story. Of laughter turned to silence, joy turned to despair. Tom found himself drawn to what had once been a grand ballroom. The floor was littered with broken glass and debris from long-forgotten celebrations. He imagined couples twirling under shimmering lights before tragedy struck. Meanwhile, Sarah wandered into a small library lined with dusty tomes, whose spines cracked under her touch. She felt an inexplicable pull toward one particular book that lay open on a table, a diary belonging to Eleanor Blackwood, the hotel's last owner. As she read aloud passages filled with despair and madness, of guests who never checked out and whispers in the dark, an unsettling feeling settled over her. "Guys, you need to hear this!" she called out just as Jake stumbled into view from down the hall. "What is it?" he asked impatiently. "This diary. It talks about something dark lurking in these halls," Sarah replied breathlessly. "Eleanor wrote about shadows that consumed people whole." "Sounds like typical ghost story stuff," Jake scoffed, but couldn't shake off an uneasy feeling creeping up his spine. As night deepened outside, their laughter faded into silence, punctuated only by creaking floorboards and distant echoes that seemed almost alive. They regrouped in what had once been a luxurious suite, adorned with tattered drapes and moth-eaten furniture. Suddenly, Lila gasped as she pointed toward a corner where shadows seemed to coalesce unnaturally, a dark mass swirling ominously against the wall. "Did you see that?" she whispered urgently. Before anyone could respond, Tom felt an icy breath on his neck, a sensation so real it sent shivers coursing through him. He spun around but found nothing there, except darkness pressing closer around them like an encroaching tide. "We should go," Maya urged, her voice trembling slightly now as fear began to seep into their bravado. But before they could make their escape, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, a sound so jarring it felt like thunder rumbling through their bones. They exchanged terrified glances. Something was very wrong. "Let's check it out," Jake said defiantly, despite his heart racing wildly within his chest. They descended cautiously down the staircase leading into darkness, where flickering lights cast grotesque shadows along peeling walls. As they reached the bottom step, they found themselves standing before an open door leading into what appeared to be an abandoned dining hall, the long table still set for dinner despite years of neglect. And then they saw it. Figures seated at each place setting, hollow-eyed specters dressed in finery from another era, staring blankly at them as if waiting for something or someone who would never arrive. Panic surged through them. This wasn't just an abandoned hotel. was alive with memories too painful to bear. They turned to flee, but found themselves trapped by unseen forces, pulling them back toward those ghostly figures who began whispering incoherently, a cacophony of despair echoing through their minds. "Run!" Maya screamed as she broke free from whatever held her captive and dashed toward the exit, but not before catching sight of Sarah frozen in place beside Eleanor Blackwood herself, the specter reaching out with skeletal fingers toward her friend's throat. In that moment of horror-stricken clarity, Sarah broke free from her trance just as Eleanor's fingers grazed her skin. She stumbled backward into Tom, who pulled her away just as shadows erupted around them, like living tendrils seeking prey. They bolted back up the stairs together, fear propelling them forward until they burst through the front door into moonlight once more, gasping for breath as adrenaline coursed through their veins like wildfire, igniting every nerve, ending alive with terror. Outside, under starlit skies far removed from those haunted halls, they vowed never again would they tempt fate or seek thrills within cursed places where darkness thrived on fear itself. But even as they drove away from Blackwood Hotel, their hearts still racing, their minds couldn't shake off lingering whispers echoing behind them. Secrets buried deep within those walls, waiting patiently for new souls brave enough, or foolish enough, to uncover its horrors once more. And somewhere within those forsaken halls, the shadows stirred restlessly, hungry for company.